Hey, everybody. Really want to discuss something very important with a lot of people because there's so much different information out there and there's so many ridiculous, meaningless, magical numbers out there. So let's talk about a more realistic way to look at your magical number, at calculating your magical number, because everybody's in a different situation. I'll often just create an example scenario on, say, somebody retiring with $1 million, and then I get comments, you can't retire unless you have at least 10 million. Well, everybody lives in a different situation. Your point of view might be different when you live in New York versus in a small town in Arizona. All right. So we need to understand that everybody lives a different life in retirement. They have different resources, and we need to come up with a way that we can confidently say we have enough resources to meet our needs in retirement. So let's look at this. The Google machine, my favorite machine. Anytime I have an ailment, I go, Google, tell me what's wrong with me. Well, the Google machine will have a whole bunch of different answers for everybody. Everybody has an answer. Sometimes you'll see things like you need to have 10 times your final income in savings to go into retirement. Sometimes you can do a simple calculation. You can look out there today and say, well, we can get 5% interest anywhere right now. So $3 million in savings times 5% interest, that's $150,000 worth of interest without even touching principal. Holy cow, we got enough money to go into retirement. And then interest rates crash back down to zero. And how do you fund your retirement? So there's flaws in every one of these. You know, the big study came out behind my head here. Most Americans calculate $1.8 million is the magical number. And that was a survey of a lot of people. And 1.8 is where it came out. And it's a survey they've been doing over and over and over again. And the inflation definitely affected that because it was more like 1.5 million the last time that they did this calculation. So everybody has these arbitrary numbers, these arbitrary ways to calculate how you're going to come up with your magical number. And I tend to look at things a little more logically, and that helps a lot of people understand these things. So I need you all to answer this question first, or these question first. What is the income that you're going to need to have a comfortable, enjoyable retirement? And for a lot of people, it makes it much easier to break this down. What kind of monthly necessity bills will you have? Do you need 1,000 a month? Do you need 5,000 a month? Do you need 7,000 a month to pay your base living expenses? Again, don't look at this as everybody needs at least this much. No, I know people enjoying their retirement on $2,000 a month. Everybody has different expectations. Some people's hobbies don't cost them anything. They go enjoy hiking and kayaking and things like that don't cost them any money. They have a little camper they run around in, and that's their enjoyment. So everybody has a different budget. Don't be afraid to go through your bills and look at it and say, well, what do I need? Absolute necessities just to survive in retirement, and fill in that answer first. Then take a look at what enjoyment costs you. What are you going to need on top of that? Is a vacation $10,000 to you, or is it $2,000? Is a vacation $25,000, $30,000? I saw my parents spend $40,000 on their graduation from I call it graduation. When you retire and you no longer are going to work again, that's graduation, by the way. So they went on a round the world cruise. They said, the heck with this, we're out of here. And they went and enjoyed things. So everybody has different ideas. You know, the Viking river cruises are a lot more expensive than just the big general ships, or even getting one of those repositioning cruises that are super cheap. So think about what life is going to cost you, and then add on some fun stuff to it. That's how you're going to come up with the budget. You need to come up with this first. All right. And then there's a couple other little questions that we have to answer. The first one is, how many years do you think you're going to spend in retirement? You know, I often use 100 years old, and then people tell me, oh, nobody lived to 100 statistically. Well, I'm trying to be conservative in my calculations, because what if I do the calculation to 90 and you run out of money at 90 and you live to 100? right? So everybody's going to have their own decision on this. Nobody has a wrong answer. Okay. But I will tell you another thing that statistically happens is you live several years longer than you predict you will. Do that for yourself. Write down the number. How long do you think you're going to live? And put it somewhere where you can look back at it when you're older than that, right? So think about that. Years in retirement, 20, 30 years in retirement. Estimate high. Be conservative by estimating a longer period of time. And then how much guaranteed income will you have, right? Social Security and pension income is guaranteed income. Some of you may have income annuities that are going to have guaranteed payments to you for the rest of your life. How much guaranteed income? And yes, I know sometimes there's a gap. You might retire at 60 and have to wait till 70 or 67 or whenever that you decide to take your Social Security. But the majority of these retirement years, you will have that income paying out to you. So just put in the number, what's the total income that you're going to have from those guaranteed sources in retirement. And yes, some people think Social Security is not guaranteed. If Social Security doesn't exist, we got bigger problems and our monetary system is falling apart. And our US dollar is probably not worth much. So let's not be a doomsdayer. Plug in what we think our guaranteed income will be in retirement. And then we go to calculate. We go to this neat little chart right here and we say, okay, let's fill in the blanks. Years in retirement. My example, I have 30. Guaranteed income is 40,000 and the desired income was 80,000. So let's just say this is a single person. They want to enjoy retirement on $80,000 a year using today's dollars. Okay. Don't try to estimate 20, 30 years in the future with inflation and all that kind of crazy stuff. Just look at the world today because we're going to calculate the money needed in today's dollars. And then investing is going to help us keep up with inflation. Okay. So we filled in the blanks here. We've got the desired income we came up with was 80,000. We filled in the blanks. Social Security and pension income is going to be about 40,000. And we estimate high that we're going to live 30 years in retirement. Maybe it's we're going to live to 90, 95, 85, whatever. But estimate how many years you're going to live in retirement. And then the next thing we do is do a couple very simple math equations here. Okay. All you do is subtract the desired or the guaranteed income from the desired income, meaning we need to know how much we need from our savings each year to enjoy retirement. If our guaranteed income is $40,000 and we need 80, then we have to pull 40 additional dollars from our savings. Okay. Then we look at the years in retirement and we simply multiply $40,000 by 30 years, and that's $1.2 million. So this person's magical number is $1.2 million, and it leaves us a huge margin of error. And yes, we do have to recognize a few things. This doesn't account for things like big purchases, a second home, a boat, a condo in Cabo, whatever it is. If you're going to go spend big chunks of money, this calculation does not account for things like that. It also doesn't account for big emergencies, additional cars, or just general overspending, right? But what this does not account for is growth, right? This is a calculation at zero growth. And the whole idea of doing this calculation at zero growth is that any growth in there will then help us combat inflation, because you go redo this calculation in the opposite fashion and it tells us how much you can withdraw each year. And every time you have growth, that 40,000 you can withdraw gets bigger. And that helps you keep up with inflation. So this is every calculation is going to have some good and bad about it. But think about this. This calculation tells you that if you have $1.2 million, you theoretically can go throw it in $1 bills in your closet and pull $40,000 out every year for 30 years. This helps a lot of people visualize really how much money they have, because the calculation can go a lot of different directions. If you don't if you're trying to find out how much you can spend, you can take what you have saved and divide it by how many years you have in retirement. And that's going to then tell you how much you can withdraw each year. And then as you have it invested, it grows and that number gets bigger and you go enjoy your retirement. So there's a lot of ways to look at this. I don't like the ladder CD type thing because interest rates might look okay now, but how do they look 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when you have to start renewing these CDs? So living off interest, those days are gone. They were perfectly fine back in the 80s and 90s. But the 2000s, the 2010s, the 2020s, look how many decades we've had of very low interest rates. We have to look at this differently. And this calculation helps people get a little more comfortable with the money that they have in retirement. It helps you think about that budget in retirement and what it's going to cost you. So 1.2 is that magical number, but then you need to add on things like the big purchases, some cushions for emergency, and maybe some overspending. I've had plenty of people think that they're going to live on 80 and end up living on 90. Happens all the time. So just think through this. It's a good exercise and it helps you start coming up with that number for yourself. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully that gives you a little insight into this generic nonsense that we see out there. Everybody doesn't need 1.8 million. Everybody doesn't need 3. Everybody doesn't need 10. Everybody has a different situation. I see plenty of people in retirement that have Social Security and pension income that pays everything, including their enjoyment. So everybody's in a different situation. That's the bottom line. And the calculation can be different for everybody. Let us know if we can help out. I love doing all this stuff. If you have any thoughts on this, comment below. I'm always happy to field the comments. I do reply to any questions that are in there. Share this with friends. This will help you kind of ease into retirement, knowing with confidence that you've got some money, and that always helps. Give us a call, shoot us an email. I'm always happy to help out, and we'll see you next week.